Jake Morrison stood at the window of the royal palace, watching the twin suns set over Kelthra Prime. 6 months had passed since he left Earth to take this job. 6 months of training alien guards who looked at him like he was some kind of curiosity. 6 months of being the only human in a palace filled with beings who thought they were better than him. He did not mind it much. The pay was good, and the Kelterans were not cruel. They were just different. They stood tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their eyes were large and dark, and they moved with a grace that humans could never match. But Jake had learned something important during his time here. Grace did not mean strength. Beauty did not mean courage. The palace was a massive structure made of crystal and metal. It reached high into the sky, catching the light of the suns and throwing rainbows across the city below. Inside, thousands of rooms held the government of one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. And at the center of it all sat Queen Valara, ruler of the Keltheran people. Jake had met the queen several times. She was young for a monarch, only 30 cycles old. In human years, that made her about 40. She had kind eyes and a quick mind. Unlike most of her people, she treated Jake like an equal. She asked him questions about Earth, about human history, about why humans did things the way they did. She seemed genuinely interested, not just polite. That made her different. That made her dangerous to some people. Jake turned from the window and walked down the long hallway. His boots made soft sounds on the polished floor. Around him, Keltheran guards stood at their posts. They wore armor that gleamed like mirrors and carried weapons that hummed with energy. They looked impressive. They looked unstoppable. But Jake knew better. He had trained these guards. He had seen them in practice drills. They were good at what they did, but they lacked something. When things got hard, when the pressure was real, they hesitated. They thought too much. They questioned. On Earth, hesitation got you killed. Jake reached the security office and found Carl Peterson waiting for him. Carl was another human, a trade liaison who worked in the palace. He was older than Jake, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been in the diplomatic service for 20 years. "Jake," Carl said, looking up from his datapad. "We need to talk. What is it?" Carl glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "The Zelkoth separatists. Intelligence says they are planning something big." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The Zelkoth separatists were a radical group that wanted to break away from the Empire. They believed the Queen was too weak, too willing to work with other species. They especially hated humans. They saw humanity as a threat to Keltheran purity. "How big?" Jake asked. "Big enough that the security chief doubled the palace guard. Big enough that Ambassador Linda Hayes is asking all humans to stay alert." Jake nodded slowly. Linda Hayes was the human ambassador to the Keltheran Empire. She was smart and tough, but even she seemed worried lately. The political situation had been getting worse for weeks. There were protests in the streets. There were angry speeches in the Imperial Senate. And now there were threats. When? Jake asked. No one knows. Could be today. Could be next week. But it is coming. Jake left the security office and made his way to the training hall. He had a class to teach in an hour. 15 palace guards would be there, learning human combat techniques. They were good students, eager to learn. But they did not really understand why humans fought the way they did. Humans came from Earth, a world the galaxy called a death world. It was a planet of storms and earthquakes, of predators and diseases. Humans had evolved fighting for every meal, defending every home, surviving when survival should have been impossible. That made humans different. That made humans dangerous. The Keltherans did not come from a world like that. Their homeworld had been gentle, their evolution peaceful. They had developed intelligence not to hunt, but to hide. They had learned to think, to build, to create beauty. but they had not learned to stand and fight. When there was no other choice, Jake entered the training hall and found his students already waiting. They stood at attention, their armor perfect, their weapons ready. Jake walked past them, studying their faces. They looked confident. They looked strong, but there was something in their eyes. Something Jake had seen before. It was fear, hidden deep, but still there. They knew something was coming. They could feel it. "Today we will practice close quarters combat," Jake said. "In a real fight, your enemy will not give you space. They will not give you time to think. You will have to act on instinct." The guards nodded. They had heard this speech before, but Jake wondered if they truly understood. Instinct for a Kelthoran meant flight. Instinct for a human meant fight. They trained for 2 hours. Jake showed them moves, tested their reactions, pushed them to their limits. They were good. They were well trained. But when Jake created scenarios that were truly desperate, truly dangerous, he saw it happen. He saw them look for the exit. He saw them calculate their chances of escape. After the training ended, Jake went to his quarters and cleaned up. He put on his formal uniform, the one he wore when he had official duties. Tonight there was a state ceremony in the throne room. The Queen would be receiving ambassadors from 3 different species. Security would be tight. Jake would be stationed in the inner palace, close to the throne room itself. He checked his weapon, a human-made pistol that the Kelthorans had approved for his use. It was loaded and ready. He hoped he would not need it. The ceremony began at sunset. Jake took his position in a corridor outside the throne room. Around him, other guards stood at their posts. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed calm, but Jake felt something wrong. He could not explain it. It was just a feeling, an instinct from years of military service. Something bad was coming. One of the Kelthoran guards near him shifted nervously. Jake looked at him and saw sweat on the guard's silver skin. That was unusual. Kelthorans did not sweat easily. "Are you well?" Jake asked. The guard nodded quickly. Too quickly. "Yes, I am fine. Just tired." Jake did not believe him. He looked at the other guards. They all seemed tense. They all seemed afraid. Then the alarm started screaming. The sound was deafening, echoing through the palace halls. Red lights flashed everywhere. Jake grabbed his weapon and moved toward the throne room. He could hear explosions in the distance. He could hear shouting. A voice came over the communication system. "All guards to defensive positions. The palace is under attack. This is not a drill. The palace is under attack." Jake ran. Around him, Kelthoran guards were running too, but not toward the fight. They were running away from it. He saw confusion in their eyes. He saw panic starting to spread. He reached the throne room and found chaos. Guards were trying to form defensive lines, but they were disorganized. Officers were shouting orders, but no one seemed to be listening. And through it all, Jake could smell something strange in the air. Something chemical. Something wrong. A senior guard grabbed Jake's arm. "Get the Queen to safety. Take her to the inner sanctum. Now." Jake did not argue. He pushed through the crowd and found Queen Valara standing near her throne. She looked calm, but he could see the fear in her eyes. Around her stood several advisors and a few guards. "Your Majesty," Jake said. "We need to move, now." The Queen looked at him and nodded. "Lead the way, Jake Morrison." Jake led the group deeper into the palace, toward the most secure room. Behind them, he could hear the sounds of battle getting closer. The attack was coming fast. Too fast, and Jake had a terrible feeling that things were about to get much worse. The throne room was the most defensible position in the palace. It had thick walls, reinforced doors, and only one main entrance. Jake had studied the layout during his training. If they had to make a stand, this was the place to do it. 15 elite guards followed Jake and the Queen into the room. These were the best warriors the Keltheran Empire had. They wore the silver and blue armor of the Royal Guard. Their weapons were charged and ready. They moved with discipline and purpose, but Jake could see something was wrong. The guards were sweating more now. Their hands shook slightly as they took up defensive positions. Their eyes kept darting to the exits. Something was affecting them, something beyond normal fear. Ambassador Linda Hayes arrived with 2 court officials. She looked pale, and her breathing was quick. "Jake," she said, "what is happening out there?" "Separatists," Jake replied. "They hit us hard and fast. Communications are jammed. We cannot call for help. How long until reinforcements arrive?" "If the military knows we are under attack, maybe 30 minutes. Maybe more." Linda nodded and moved to stand near the Queen. The court officials huddled together, whispering in frightened voices. Jake checked the entrance. The doors were solid metal, designed to withstand heavy weapons fire. They had a good position. With 15 trained guards, they should be able to hold this room for hours if needed. An explosion shook the palace. Dust fell from the ceiling. The guards flinched. One of them took a step backward. Jake noticed. The senior guard, a veteran named Kelver, began organizing the defense. 3 guards on the door, 3 covering the high windows, the rest in reserve. Standard defensive formation. The guards moved to obey, but Jake could see their reluctance. Something was very wrong. These were elite warriors, trained for exactly this situation. They should be confident, focused. Instead, they looked terrified. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. Through the thick doors, they could hear fighting. Energy weapons discharged with sharp cracks. There were screams. Kelver walked to Jake. The senior guard's silver skin had turned almost white. "Human," he said quietly. "Do you smell that?" Jake inhaled. Yes, there was something in the air. A sharp, bitter scent. It grew stronger with each passing minute. To Jake, it just smelled bad. But he could see what it was doing to the Keltherans. "What is it?" Jake asked. "Fear pheromones," Kelver said. His voice shook. "The Separatists are using biological weapons. They are triggering our prey response." Jake understood immediately. Keltherans had evolved as a prey species. Millions of years ago, their ancestors had survived by running from predators. When faced with certain chemical signals, their instinct to flee became overwhelming. It was written into their biology. They could not fight it. "Can you resist it?" Jake asked. Kelver looked at him with desperate eyes. "I am trying. We are all trying. But it is getting stronger." The doors shuddered under a heavy impact. The enemy was here. Through the communication panels, a voice spoke. It was cold and filled with hate. "Surrender, Queen Valara. Surrender now, and the rest of you may live." Queen Valara stood tall. "I will not surrender to traitors." Another impact on the doors. The metal held, but it would not hold forever. Jake watched the guards. They were breathing hard now. Their eyes were wide. One of them was shaking so badly he could barely hold his weapon. The pheromones were working. Biology was overriding training. Instinct overwhelming duty. The first guard broke. He was young, barely 20 cycles old. He let out a sound that was half sob, half gasp. Then he ran. He dropped his weapon and sprinted for the side exit. He did not look back. "Hold your position," Kelver shouted. But his own voice was strained. A second guard ran. Then a third. It happened fast, like dominoes falling. The fear spread from one to another. Their ancient instincts screamed at them to flee, and they could not resist. Kelver fought it longer than the others. Jake could see the internal battle on his face. The senior guard wanted to stay. He wanted to protect his queen. But his body betrayed him. With tears running down his face, Kelver turned and ran. In less than 2 minutes, all 15 guards had fled the throne room. Linda Hayes was next. She fought it too, Jake could tell. But she was not Keltheran. She was human. So why was she running? Then Jake understood. Panic was contagious. She had seen the guards flee, and her own fear had taken over. She ran through the side exit, followed by the 2 court officials. Jake stood alone before the entrance. Behind him, Queen Valara remained on her throne. She looked at him with wide eyes. She was waiting for him to run to. The door shook again. The enemy was breaking through. Jake could hear them on the other side, counting down. They would be inside in seconds. Jake checked his weapon. Full magazine. 1 spare. Not much ammunition, but it would have to do. He looked around the throne room for anything useful. There were decorative pillars that could provide cover. There were heavy curtains that might hide his position. The narrow entrance meant enemies could only come through a few at a time. He could work with this. Human, Queen Valara said softly. Why do you not run? Jake glanced back at her. I made a promise, Your Majesty. When I took this job, I swore to protect you. I keep my promises, but you will die. Maybe, Jake said, but I am not leaving. The Queen stared at him. In her entire life, she had never seen anyone refuse their biological imperative. It was impossible. When the fear came, all creatures ran. That was the law of nature, but Jake was not running. Jake was moving to the entrance, taking a defensive position. Jake was raising his weapon. The pheromones do not affect you? The Queen asked. I can smell something bad, Jake said, but it does not make me want to run. Humans did not evolve as prey, Your Majesty. On Earth, running away often meant death. We learned to stand our ground. The doors exploded inward. Smoke filled the entrance. Through the smoke came figures in dark armor. They carried heavy weapons and moved with military precision. These were not random rebels. These were trained soldiers. The first one through the door saw Jake and hesitated. Just for a second. That hesitation cost him. Jake fired twice. The separatists went down. The others pulled back. Jake heard shouting on the other side. They had not expected resistance. They had expected to find the Queen alone and helpless. A voice called out. Who stands in there? Identify yourself. My name is Jake Morrison, Jake replied. I am a security consultant for the Keltham Empire, and I am not moving. There was a pause. Then laughter. A human? One human thinks he can stop us. Come in and find out, Jake said. He heard orders being given. Then 3 separatists rushed through the entrance together. Jake was ready. The narrow opening meant they could not spread out. They were bunched together, making easy targets. Jake fired carefully. 1 shot, 1 target. He had learned to shoot in the Earth military. He had fought in places where ammunition was precious. He did not waste bullets. 2 separatists went down. The third fired back, but his shot went wide. Jake rolled behind a pillar and returned fire. The third separatist fell, more shouting from outside. The enemy was getting angry now. They had lost 4 soldiers to 1 human. That was embarrassing. What is embarrassing? That was unacceptable. Jake used a brief pause to check his ammunition. He had used 8 rounds. That left 7 in his current magazine and 15 in his spare. 22 bullets total. He looked back at Queen Valara. She had moved behind her throne, using it for cover. She was watching him with an expression he could not read. Shock? Disbelief? Respect? The enemy tried again. This time they threw in a flash grenade first. The explosion of light and sound was meant to disorient Jake. It worked, partially. His vision blurred and his ears rang, but his training kicked in. Even blind and deaf, he knew where the entrance was. He fired 3 shots toward it and heard a scream. When his vision cleared, he saw 1 separatist down and 2 more pulling back. He had hit them. They were learning that rushing the entrance was suicide. "Stubborn, are you not?" The voice called out. "We have dozens of fighters. You have limited ammunition. You cannot win." Jake did not answer. He was conserving energy, staying focused. He checked his surroundings again. The bodies of the fallen separatists lay near the entrance. One of them had dropped a rifle. If Jake could reach it, he would have more ammunition. But getting to it meant exposing himself to enemy fire. Too risky. The enemy changed tactics. They began firing into the throne room without entering. Energy bolts flew through the entrance, hitting walls and furniture. They were trying to pin Jake down, to keep him from defending the opening. Jake crouched behind his pillar and waited. This was wasting their time, not his. Every minute that passed was 1 minute closer to reinforcements arriving. He just had to hold out. Queen Valara crawled toward him, staying low. "Jake Morrison," she said, "I owe you an apology. For what, Your Majesty?" "For doubting your people. For thinking humans were just another species. I see now that you are different. You are truly different." Jake smiled grimly. "We are just stubborn, Your Majesty. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned that giving up meant death. So we do not give up." The shooting stopped. Jake tensed. This was not good. The enemy was planning something new. Something worse. The voice called out again. "Last chance, human. Walk away now. We will let you live. You have fought well. You have honor. But this is not your fight. The Queen is not your people." They came through the entrance like a flood. 6 separatists all firing at once. The throne room lit up with energy bolts that scorched the walls and shattered furniture. Jake had never seen such concentrated fire. He dropped flat and rolled left, firing as he moved. 1 separatist went down, then another. But there were too many, and they were spreading out now, using the fallen bodies and broken furniture for cover. Jake made it behind a thick pillar and pressed his back against it. Energy bolts hit the other side, sending chips of stone flying. He was breathing hard. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. This was what he had trained for. This was what Earth had prepared him for. He leaned out and fired 3 quick shots. 1 hit. He ducked back as return fire nearly took his head off. The separatists were good. They knew what they were doing, but they had made a mistake. They had all come through the entrance at once, abandoning their defensive position outside. That meant no more waiting to rush in. These 4 remaining fighters were all he had to face, 4 against 1. Bad odds, but Jake had faced worse. He moved to a different position, using the smoke and chaos for cover. The separatists lost track of him for a moment. That moment was all he needed. He fired twice, dropping another enemy. 3 left. They were getting smarter now, more careful. They had stopped their wild shooting and were using proper tactics. They moved to flank him, to catch him in crossfire. Jake could not let that happen. He grabbed a piece of broken furniture and threw it to his right. The separatists fired at the sound. While they were distracted, Jake moved left and fired at the nearest one. The shot caught the separatist in the shoulder, spinning him around. 2.5 left, but Jake's magazine was empty. He dropped behind cover and reached for his spare. As he reloaded, energy bolts tore through the air where he had been standing a second before. That was close. Too close. His hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over. Eject the empty magazine. Insert the full one. Chamber around. The whole process took 3 seconds. 3 seconds where he could not fight back. The Separatists used those seconds to advance. When Jake looked up, one of them was almost on top of him. The enemy raised his weapon to fire point-blank. Jake was faster. He grabbed the weapon's barrel and pushed it aside. The shot went wild. Then Jake brought his own pistol up and fired into the Separatist's chest. The enemy fell. 1.5 left. The wounded Separatist was trying to get back into the fight, but his injured shoulder made his aim poor. The last unwounded fighter was the dangerous one. He had taken cover behind the Queen's throne. From there, he had a clear line of fire to most of the room. It was a stalemate. If Jake moved, he would be shot. If the Separatist moved, Jake would shoot him. Then the enemy did something clever. He grabbed Queen Valara. The Queen tried to fight, swinging her ceremonial blade. But the Separatist was trained in combat. He dodged the blade and twisted the Queen's arm, forcing her to drop the weapon. Then he held his energy rifle to her head. "Drop your weapon, human," the Separatist called out. "Or I kill her right now." Jake stood slowly, keeping his pistol aimed at the enemy. But the Separatist was using the Queen as a shield. There was no clear shot. "I said drop it." Jake looked at Queen Valara. She was frightened, but her eyes met his. She shook her head slightly. She was telling him not to surrender. She would rather die than let the Separatists win. Jake had to admire that. "No," Jake said. The Separatist seemed shocked. "I will kill her." "Then kill her," Jake said calmly. "But the second you pull that trigger, I will kill you. You will not live to see what happens next." It was a bluff. If the Separatist killed the Queen, Jake would shoot him, yes. But the mission would be over. The Separatists would have won. Jake was betting that this fighter wanted the Queen alive. She was worth more as a prisoner than a corpse. The Separatists' eyes flickered with uncertainty. Jake had guessed right. Then the wounded Separatist made his move. He came around from the side, trying to catch Jake in a crossfire. But his movements were slow, pained. Jake saw him coming. Jake made a split-second decision. He could not save the Queen if he was dead. He spun and shot the wounded Separatist first. The enemy went down and did not move. The move had left Jake exposed. The last Separatist had a clear shot at him now, but he still held the Queen, still hesitated. That hesitation saved Jake's life. Before the Separatist could decide, Queen Valara acted. She stomped down hard on his foot. The enemy's grip loosened for just a second. The Queen twisted away. It was all the opening Jake needed. He fired once. The shot was perfect. The last Separatist fell. The throne room went silent, except for the sound of Jake's breathing and the Queen's gasps. 7 Separatist bodies lay scattered across the floor. 7 trained soldiers who had come to kill the Queen. All dead. Jake checked each one to make sure they were not faking. Then he moved to the entrance and looked out into the corridor. More bodies there, the ones from the first assault. But no living enemies that he could see. "Are you hurt, Your Majesty?" Jake asked. Queen Valara shook her head. She was staring at the bodies, at the destruction, at Jake. "How is this possible?" She whispered. "You are one person. They were many. They had to come through a narrow entrance," Jake said, checking his ammunition. 4 rounds left. That was not good. And I had a good position. "Basic military tactics, Your Majesty." "Basic?" The Queen let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "You just defeated 7 trained soldiers by yourself. That is not basic." Jake shrugged. "I am not dead yet. That means I did something right." He moved back to the entrance and looked out again. Still no movement. But that did not mean they were safe. There had to be more Separatists in the palace. The question was how many and when would they come. The Queen joined him at the entrance. How long until help arrives? Jake checked his watch. We have been fighting for about 12 minutes. If the military got the alert immediately, reinforcements could be here in 15 or 20 more minutes. But we do not know if they got the alert. Communications are still jammed. So, we might be alone for hours. Or days, Jake said honestly. We need to plan for the worst. The Queen looked at the bodies again, then at Jake. You are wounded. Jake glanced down. She was right. He had taken a hit during the fight, a glancing shot that had burned through his uniform and scorched his side. The pain had not registered until now. His adrenaline had been too high. Now that he noticed it, it hurt. Quite a bit. It is not bad, Jake lied. The Queen tore a piece of fabric from her royal gown and moved to Jake's side. Let me see. Your Majesty, you should not. I am not helpless, Jake Morrison. Let me help you. Jake allowed her to examine the wound. It was a burn, about 10 centimeters long. Painful but not life-threatening. The Queen wrapped the fabric around it, creating a makeshift bandage. Thank you, Jake said. They heard sounds in the distance. Footsteps, voices. The enemy was regrouping. Jake moved to one of the fallen separatists and took the rifle from his hands. He checked the weapon. It was fully charged. That gave him more firepower, at least for a while. Your Majesty, Jake said, I need you to stay behind the throne. If they break through, I want you to have some cover. The Queen nodded and moved back to her position. She picked up her ceremonial blade again. Jake noticed her hands were shaking. Are you afraid? Jake asked. Yes, the Queen said. I am terrified. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Fear keeps you alive. Just do not let it control you. How do you do it? How do you face death so calmly? Jake thought about that. I am not calm, Your Majesty. I am scared too. But I learned a long time ago that showing fear to your enemy gives them power. So I hide it. I act brave even when I am not. Eventually, the acting becomes real. The footsteps were getting closer. Jake raised the rifle and aimed at the entrance. They are coming back, he said. Jake Morrison, the Queen said. If we do not survive this, I want you to know something. You have shown me what true courage means. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to stand despite it. I will remember this, even if it is my last memory. We are not dead yet, Your Majesty, Jake said. And I do not plan on dying today. A voice echoed from the corridor. It was different from before, deeper and filled with authority. I am Commander Dravok of the Zelkoth Separatists. I know you can hear me, human. Jake said nothing. You fight well, Dravok continued. You have killed 12 of my soldiers. That is impressive for one person. But it changes nothing. One have 30 more fighters in this palace. You have limited ammunition. You are wounded. And you are alone. Still, Jake remained silent. I will make you an offer, Dravok said. Walk away. Take your human ambassador and leave this planet. We will pay you 1 million credits. You will be rich. You will be alive. All you have to do is abandon the Queen. Jake looked at Queen Velara. She was watching him, waiting to see what he would say. I am waiting for your answer, human, Dravok called out. Jake raised his voice. Commander Dravok, I have an answer for you. Yes? No. There was a long pause. Then Dravok laughed. It was not a happy sound. You choose death for money you already earned? That is foolish. Maybe, Jake said. But it is my choice. And I am not moving. Then you will die, human. And your death will be for nothing. The Queen will fall anyway. Your sacrifice will be meaningless. That is not for you to decide, Jake called back. They did not rush in this time. They were smarter now. They knew what Jake could do. Instead, they suppressed him with covering fire while moving forward in coordinated teams. Energy bolts filled the throne room like rain. Jake could not lift his head without risking it being shot off. He was pinned down, unable to return fire effectively. This was bad. This was very bad, that he heard the footsteps getting closer. They were advancing under the cover of their own fire. In seconds, they would be in the throne room with him. Then his defensive advantage would be gone. Jake did the only thing he could. He rolled out from cover, exposing himself to enemy fire, and sprayed the entrance with his rifle. It was desperate and reckless. Several shots hit him in the armor, bruising his ribs. One grazed his leg, but his wild fire caught two separatists who had been entering the room. They went down. Jake rolled back to cover, breathing hard. Pain shot through his side and leg. He was collecting wounds fast. Too fast, but his desperate move had worked. The enemy attack faltered. They pulled back to reassess. Queen Valara crawled to him. "You are hurt worse." "I'm fine," Jake said. The blood was soaking through his pants where the shot had grazed him. "Stay down, Your Majesty." The Queen looked at him with something like wonder. "Why do you keep fighting? You could have left. Even now, you could try to escape. But you stay." Jake checked his rifle. The charge was getting low. Maybe 15 shots left. "On Earth, we have a saying, Your Majesty. Some things are worth dying for. Keeping your word is one of them. Is that what this is? Keeping your word?" Jake thought about it. "Partially. But it is more than that. You are a good leader. You treat people fairly. You tried to make the galaxy better. If you die today, the Separatists win. And people like them should not win." The Queen touched his arm gently. "I misjudged your species, Jake Morrison. We all did. You can make it up to humanity if we survive this," Jake said with a tired smile. The enemy was planning something new. Jake could hear them arguing. Some wanted to wait and starve him out. Others wanted to keep attacking. Commander Dravok's voice rose above the rest, ordering them to attack again. The commander was making a mistake. He was angry now, letting emotion override tactics. Angry commanders made errors. Jake just had to survive long enough to exploit them. The next assault came from multiple angles. The Separatists had split up, with some firing through the entrance while others tried to come in through the high windows. It was a good plan. Jake could not defend everywhere at once. He chose to focus on the entrance. The windows were small and high. It would take time for enemies to climb through. The entrance was the immediate danger. Jake fired carefully, making each shot count. He dropped one Separatist, then another. His aim was still good, despite his wounds. Despite his exhaustion, but a Separatist made it through the window behind him. Jake heard the sound of boots hitting the floor. He spun, but he was too slow. The enemy had his weapon raised and aimed at Jake's head. Then Queen Valara was there. She moved faster than Jake thought possible. Her ceremonial blade flashed in the light. The Separatist screamed and fell back, clutching a wound on his arm. It was not a killing blow, but it had saved Jake's life. Jake shot the wounded Separatist before he could recover. Then he nodded to the Queen. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The Queen was shaking, staring at the blood on her blade. She had never hurt anyone before. The Kelthorans were a peaceful species, but she had acted when it mattered. She had fought when she needed to. "I killed him," she whispered. "No," Jake said. "I killed him. You defended yourself." There is a difference. More enemies were coming through the windows now. Jake could not stop them all. He shot two more, but a third made it into the room. Then a fourth. They were inside his defensive perimeter now. This was turning into close quarters combat. Jake dropped the rifle and drew his pistol. 4 bullets left. He made them count. 2 enemies went down, but more were coming. He grabbed a fallen separatist's weapon and fired it until it was empty. Then he used it as a club, smashing it into an enemy's face. The separatist fell. Jake took his weapon too. The throne room was chaos. Bodies everywhere. Smoke in the air. The smell of burnt flesh and scorched metal. Jake was moving on pure instinct now, his training taking over completely. He did not think. He just acted. Fight, move, shoot. Fight, move, shoot. Over and over. He lost track of how many he had fought. 5? 10? Time became meaningless. There was only the next threat, the next enemy, the next shot. Then suddenly, it was quiet. Jake stood in the center of the throne room, surrounded by fallen enemies. His breath came in ragged gasps. Blood dripped from multiple wounds. But he was still standing. Queen Valara was pressed against the wall, her eyes wide. She was unharmed but terrified. The ceremonial blade was still in her hand, now stained with blood. Jake counted the bodies. 14 more separatists down, added to the previous ones that made 21 total. 21 trained soldiers dead, all from one human's desperate defense. But Jake knew this was not over. Dravok had said he had 30 fighters. That meant 9 were still out there. And Jake was almost out of ammunition. And Jake was almost out of ammunition. And Jake was almost out of ammunition. He checked every weapon in the room. Maybe 20 shots total between all of them. 9 enemies. 20 shots. If he did not miss, he heard footsteps again. Slow and deliberate. Only one person this time. Commander Dravok walked through the entrance. He was tall for a Keltheron, and he wore armor that was more advanced than his soldiers. He carried no visible weapon, but Jake knew he was dangerous. You did not become a commander by being weak. Dravok looked at the bodies. His face showed no emotion. Impressive human. 21 of my best fighters. You are either very lucky or very skilled. Both, Jake said. He kept his weapon aimed at Dravok. My name is Commander Dravok. What is yours? Jake Morrison. Wow, Jake Morrison, you have cost me dearly today. I came here expecting an easy victory. Instead, I have lost most of my assault force to one stubborn human. You could leave, Jake suggested. Take your remaining fighters and go. You have lost. Dravok smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Lost? No. Delayed, perhaps. But not lost. You are wounded. You are exhausted. You are almost out of ammunition. I have 8 more fighters who will be here in moments. This is over. Maybe, Jake said. But I will take you with me when I go. Dravok studied Jake carefully. You mean that? You truly would die before surrendering? Yes. Why? The Queen is not your species. This is not your planet. You have no personal stake in our politics. Why throw your life away for strangers? Jake thought about how to explain it. On Earth, we learn early that nothing worth having comes easy. We fight for what we believe in. I believe the Queen is a good person. I believe you are not. That makes this worth fighting for. Philosophy from a killer, Dravok said. How ironic. I am not a killer, Jake replied. I am a protector. Your soldiers attacked us. I defended. That is all semantics. Dravok gestured to the entrance. My remaining fighters are outside. They will come in on my command. You cannot stop them all, but I will make you one final offer. Join us. With your skills, you could lead our forces. We would pay you well. You could have power, wealth, anything you want. I already have what I want, Jake said. My honor. Dravok shook his head. Then you are a fool, but a brave fool. I will grant you that. He raised his hand to signal his troops, but before he could give the command, new sounds echoed through the palace. Louder footsteps, many of them, voices shouting orders, the whine of military vehicles. Dravok's expression changed. For the first time, he looked worried. Jake allowed himself a small smile. I think your time is up, Commander. The reinforcements had arrived. Imperial military forces poured into the palace. They moved with overwhelming force, securing corridors and eliminating separatist resistance. The 8 remaining fighters that Dravok had mentioned tried to fight back. They were quickly surrounded and forced to surrender. Dravok looked at Jake one last time. This is not over, human. Yes, Jake said quietly. It is. Imperial soldiers burst into the throne room, weapons ready. They stopped when they saw the scene. 24 bodies scattered across the floor. Blood everywhere. Scorch marks covering the walls. And in the center of it all, one wounded human standing guard over the queen. The lead soldier, a captain, lowered his weapon in shock. What happened here? Jake swayed on his feet. The adrenaline was fading. The pain was coming back. Everything hurt. Separatist attack, he said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. The queen is safe. Queen Valara stood and moved to Jake. This human saved my life. He stood alone when all others fled. He fought an army by himself. The captain stared at Jake with disbelief. Then he spoke into his communicator. Medical team to the throne room. Immediately. We have wounded. Jake tried to stay standing. He needed to make sure the queen was truly safe. He needed to verify that Dravok was secured. He needed to check that all threats were eliminated, but his body had other ideas. His legs gave out. He felt himself falling. Strong hands caught him. The captain and another soldier lowered him gently to the floor. Easy, human. You are safe now. We have you. Jake looked up at Queen Valara. She was kneeling beside him, holding his hand. There were tears on her face. Thank you, she said. Thank you for standing when no one else would. Jake wanted to say something. Something meaningful. Something brave. Jake woke up in a room filled with soft light. For a moment, he did not know where he was. Then the pain reminded him. His side hurt. His leg hurt. Everything hurt, but he was alive. He tried to sit up and found he could not. His body was wrapped in medical equipment. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that beeped quietly. The room smelled clean, antiseptic. You should not move yet, a voice said. Jake turned his head. Queen Valara sat in a chair beside his bed. She looked tired but unharmed. She smiled when their eyes met. Your Majesty, Jake said. His voice was rough. You should not be here. You have a kingdom to run. The kingdom can wait, the Queen replied. You saved my life, Jake Morrison. The least I can do is wait for you to wake up. How long was I out? 3 days. Your injuries were severe. The doctor said any normal person would have died from blood loss alone. But you kept fighting long past when you should have collapsed. Jake thought about that. Adrenaline is a powerful thing. It is more than that, the Queen said. The doctors studied you while you recovered. They wanted to understand how one human accomplished what you did. Do you know what they found? What? Your body is designed for survival. Your bones are denser than ours. Your muscles are stronger. Your cardiovascular system is more efficient. And your pain tolerance is far beyond what any Kelthoran could endure. You are, quite literally, built for combat. Earth was not a kind world, Jake said. We adapted or we died. The Queen stood and moved closer. I have something to tell you. Something important. While you were unconscious, I have been investigating what happened. I wanted to understand why my guards fled when you did not. The fear pheromones, Jake said. They could not resist their biology. Yes, but there is more to it. I spoke with Kelver, the senior guard who ran. He is devastated by his failure. He and the other guards have been punishing themselves, talking of resigning in shame. They should not do that, Jake said firmly. They could not control what happened. Their instincts took over. That is not cowardice. That is biology. That is exactly what I told them, the Queen said. But they struggle to accept it. They feel they failed me, failed their oaths. Then help them understand, Jake said. Their bodies made the choice, not their minds. There is no shame in that. The Queen sat on the edge of his bed. You truly believe that? Yes, on Earth, we have a saying. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear. Your guards wanted to stay. They tried to stay, but their biology would not let them. That does not make them cowards. But you stayed. Because I am human, Jake said. Because my biology is different. If those pheromones had affected me the same way, I would have run too. I am not braver than your guards. I just have different vulnerabilities. The Queen looked at him with an expression Jake could not read. You are kind, Jake Morrison. Kinder than most would be after what you endured. The door opened, and a Keltheran doctor entered. He saw that Jake was awake and smiled. Ah, good. You are conscious. How do you feel? Like I fought an army, Jake said. The doctor laughed. Well, you did. Let me check your vital signs. After examining Jake, the doctor nodded with satisfaction. You are healing well. Better than we expected, actually. You should be able to leave the medical center in a few more days. Can he have visitors? The Queen asked. A few, if he feels up to it. Jake nodded. I can handle visitors. Over the next hour, several people came to see him. Carl Peterson arrived first, looking relieved. Jake, you crazy son of a gun. The whole palace is talking about what you did. I just stood my ground, Jake said. Just stood your ground, Carl repeated. Against 30 trained soldiers, while wounded. For half an hour. Jake, you are a legend now. Next came Ambassador Linda Hayes. She looked embarrassed when she entered the room. Jake, I need to apologize. I ran. I left you and the Queen behind. You could not help it, Jake said. The fear was contagious. You did not fail, Linda. But I should have been stronger. You are human, not a machine, Jake interrupted. You felt fear and acted on it. That is normal. There is nothing to apologize for. Linda seemed unconvinced, but she nodded. Still, thank you. For what you did. After Linda left, the 15 palace guards came as a group. Kelver led them. They all looked ashamed, their heads down. We failed you, Kelver said. We failed the Queen. We have no excuse. Jake shook his head. You did not fail. Your biology was weaponized against you. That is not failure. That is being attacked in a way you could not defend against. But you defended against it. Because I am built differently. If the Separatists had used a weapon that specifically targeted human biology, I would have been the one running. Does that make sense? Kelver thought about it. Perhaps. There is no perhaps, Jake said. You all wanted to stay. You tried to stay. Your training was good. Your loyalty was real. Your bodies just would not cooperate. Do not punish yourselves for biology. The guards looked at each other. Slowly, some of the shame seemed to lift from their faces. One of the younger guards spoke up. Will you continue to train us? If you will have me, Jake said. We would be honored, Kelver said. The other guards nodded in agreement. After the guards left, Queen Valara returned. You are good with them. You helped them forgive themselves. They deserve forgiveness, Jake said. They are good soldiers who faced an impossible situation. The Queen sat down again. The Empire owes you a debt, Jake Morrison. I owe you a debt. What can we do to repay you? You do not owe me anything, Your Majesty. I was doing my job. Your job was to train guards, not fight an army alone. You went far beyond your duty. Jake thought about it. If you truly wanted to repay me, then change how the Empire views humanity. Not just me. All of us. We have skills and knowledge that could benefit everyone. Let us be partners, not just hired help. The Queen smiled. That I can do. In fact, I already have started. I am pushing through legislation that will give humans full equality in the Empire. You will have the same rights and opportunities as any Kelthoran citizen. That is a good start. There is more, the Queen said. I am creating a new position, Guardian of the Throne. It is an ancient title that has not been used in centuries. The Guardian serves as personal protector to the monarch and advisor on security matters. I want you to fill that position. Jake stared at her. Your Majesty, I am honored, but the position comes with rank equivalent to a general. You would have authority over all palace security. You would help train not just guards, but the entire imperial military in human combat techniques. And you would be compensated accordingly. That is a lot of responsibility. You proved you can handle it, the Queen said. You stood alone against an army. You saved my life and the stability of the Empire. If anyone has earned this position, it is you. Jake thought about going back to Earth. He had family there, friends, a life he had left behind when he took this job. But he also thought about what he could do here, the changes he could help make, the bridges he could build between humans and Kelthorans. I accept, Jake said. On one condition. What is that? Other humans get positions of real authority too. Not just me. If the Empire is serious about working with humanity, it needs to be at all levels. The Queen nodded. Agreed. I will make it happen. 2 weeks later, Jake stood on a platform in the Great Plaza outside the palace. Thousands of Kelthorans had gathered for the ceremony. News crews from across the galaxy broadcast the event. Queen Valara stood beside him, wearing her formal royal robes. In her hands, she held the Star of Kelthor, the highest honor the Empire could give. Jake Morrison, the Queen said, her voice amplified so all could hear. You came to our world as a stranger. You stayed when all others fled. You fought when fighting seemed impossible. You stood when standing meant death. Today, we honor not just your courage, but what your courage represents. The strength of the human spirit, the power of keeping your word, the value of standing for what is right, no matter the cost. She placed the Star of Kelthora around Jake's neck. The crowd erupted in applause. Furthermore, the Queen continued, I name you Guardian of the Throne. You will serve as my personal protector and advisor. You will help shape the future of security in this empire. And you will stand as proof that humanity deserves a place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. More applause. Jake saw Carl and Linda in the crowd, both smiling. He saw the 15 guards standing at attention, their faces full of pride. He saw thousands of Kelthorans looking at him not with suspicion or condescension, but with respect. After the ceremony, Jake found himself alone with the Queen on a palace balcony. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. How does it feel? The Queen asked. To be a hero? Jake shrugged. I do not feel like a hero. I just did what needed to be done. That is exactly what makes you a hero, Jake Morrison. Real heroes do not seek glory. They just do what is right when the moment demands it. They stood in silence for a while, watching the suns disappear below the horizon. Do you know what the most important thing you taught me is? The queen asked. What is that, your majesty? That strength comes in many forms. My people are strong in knowledge, in art, in science. But we have weaknesses too. Humans have different strengths, different perspectives. Together, we are better than either of us could be alone. That is the point of the Galactic Council.